Welcome back to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. I am James Lynch. Happy to welcome back one of our regulars here on the show. You see him every couple months. One of the best in the business, Stephen Ellis. We're here to talk about the Leafs. But before we do that, Stephen, how's it going, man? How's everything?
I'm going good. It's can't complain. It's a good time in the hockey season where, nothing crazy is happening, but we're starting to kind of see some trends of what's happening. And we get to watch the Blue Jays. So, that
Yes,
part's
and
fun too.
congrats. Out here we're kind of divided out there with the whole, Blue Jays and Mariners thing. But, good to see the Jays make the World Series. I have a lot of friends in Toronto. I used to live in Toronto, so that was really cool. And I think we can all agree everyone wants the Dodgers to lose, so that's awesome. But let's talk about the Leafs. I know we're, 6 games into the season. People do overreact a little bit, but let's start with the game last night against New Jersey. 5-2, the Devils do defeat the Leafs. Jack Hughes with a hat trick last night. Just your overall thoughts on the game and where the Leafs are, kind of right now after that loss last night.
Well, it was interesting that they decided to not do a mandatory practice today, which would be more of a common thing, especially since they don't have to travel that far to go to Buffalo on Friday. But losing 5-2, that's a tough one. Now, granted, that second period was terrible for the Leafs, the 4 goals against, but the Devils are a good team. They're 5-1-0 now. They've been fantastic all year long. They've got some really good offense. Jack Hughes played the game of his life last night. And I think with Toronto, though, there's some worrying signs. And I think part of it is, on one hand, are they pushing Anthony Stolarz a bit too much at this point? They've played 7 games. I think he's played 6 of them. This is a guy who's never been a number 1 goalie for a full season in the NHL. That's a lot of hockey to be expecting from him. But with Joe Wall not around with the team right now, they've been giving the opportunities to Stolarz, and with Primo, they picked him up on waivers, but again, they got him for free. It's not like they're too attached to him by any means, but the fact they're not scoring doesn't help. I don't think it's too much of a surprise when you lose a guy that brought you 102 points and some elite defensive game at the same time with Mitch Marner. But at the same time, I think it's 7 games. It's not a huge sample size. I saw actually one stat where when the Leafs last, I think, went 3-3-1 to start the season, the Blue Jays won the World Series. So, hey, who knows what's going to happen there. But and if I'm correct, actually, that was the year the Leafs almost made the Cup final too.
That's true, yeah.
But just a bit of a worrying start, but it is still early.
Yeah, again, super early on this. I mean, one encouraging thing, John Tavares, a goal and an assist last night. That's looking like one of the best contracts in the league right now as far as him coming back into the fold. What about some of the new additions that have been on the team this year? Again, I know we're super early in, but obviously Nick Roy, Dakota Joshua. Has there been any positives from that, or has it just been kind of you don't really notice them out there? Like what's sort of your take on? Again, it wasn't a busy offseason for the Leafs, but obviously this is a different team than what we saw last year.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of question marks. Dakota Joshua, they were hoping he could maybe go out there and get a bunch of goals and do what he did a couple years ago in Vancouver. He has struggled this year. He's just got 1 point. Look at Nicholas Waugh, just the 2 points. Michelli was kind of that high upside guy, but I was very cautious about getting excited about his type of play because we saw him last year healthy scratch something like 26 times. And right now this year, 2 points in 7 games, playing in the top 6. You got to wonder when that next healthy scratch is going to happen there. So definitely the new guys are not pulling their weight the way they were kind of hoping, but they were also never really the guys that were going to be able to do that, right? You got a couple of middle 6 guys. That was not much of
yeah.
That was never going to replace Mitch Marner. You're happy about what Nylander's doing right now. I'm surprised he hasn't scored more goals. This is a guy that's been is he going to get 45? Is he going to get 50? And right now he's got 2, but he's got 13 points. John Tavares is scoring. Matthews is scoring. Calle Jarnkrok started off really good, but you need other guys to start scoring here. You need someone like a Michelli to start adding some offense. I know goals aren't necessarily his thing, but at a certain time he's got produced too. Nick Robertson, 0 goals, 1 assist for a guy who's known for scoring goals. That one hurts there a little bit there too. So the secondary scoring is not happening. The primary scoring's been fine, but not great. They just don't look like a good hockey team right now.
Is the Nick Robertson thing's really interesting to me because, it's been out there for a while that, they are open to moving him. Maybe he needs a change of scenery at this point, but obviously, like you mentioned right now, not getting a lot of value back. Do you think there is a point in the season when if this just isn't working out, they cut their losses and just try and move on from him? Again, I know you need scoring, but it doesn't seem like he's fit into the long-term plans of the Leafs unless I'm reading this wrong.
He's 24 years old, and at that point, you're kind of hoping for a forward who made his NHL debut in the 2020 playoffs. You kind of hope he would have figured it out by now. And a lot of this has been questionable development by Toronto, but at this point, last year he scored 15 goals. That was his best season to date, from a goal standpoint. But he didn't get a ton of points overall. And it's like, if he wasn't scoring, he wasn't very effective. Right now, he's not scoring and he's not very effective. So Robertson, I know they've been hesitant to trade him in the past because the trade value probably isn't very high right now for a guy that's got injury history, who's only 5'9" and is not scoring. Like, that's not exactly a recipe for a great trade. But at this point, like, just do him a solid and say, hey man, we're going to let you go play somewhere. Go to San Jose, go somewhere else, go find an opportunity, Chicago maybe, go find an opportunity to play higher in the lineup, and maybe just you don't have to fight for your right to stay in the lineup every single night. And the fact that they've kept him in every single game is a good sign, because usually they seem to be tiptoeing around what to do with him. But right now, I just don't see a future for him in Toronto, and I think they just got to say, okay, let's just do the right thing and let you go play somewhere.
Well, I also wonder too, and it's not a lot, but in an era where you want as much cap space as you can get, the Leafs have no cap space right now. He's 1.8 right now. You know, is that something that could be appealing to the Leafs just to get something else in there, whether that is, you know, another scoring forward? Like, I also wonder too, Stephen, like, do they look at another team that maybe has a similar situation where you have this promising forward? You know, like, one name, I'm not saying that would be like a straight up trade, but like we've heard for, you know, a couple of years now, Lucas Reichel in Chicago, like, hasn't really worked out. I think this series off to a better start. Obviously, I'm not saying a 1-for-1, but do you see a situation like that for Toronto where maybe they could identify a team where they have a player that maybe isn't getting that upside, and it's just a case of players needing you know, a change of scenery? Like, I look, you know, if you go back a couple seasons ago, you know, the Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat trade, that was kind of the same thing. Not that, you know, Byram was playing terrible, but I think Colorado needed that second line center. It just seemed like more of a fit. Do you see something like that out there as a possible trade for Toronto for Nick Robertson?
I thought actually that is like a perfect comparison, truly. Like, Reichel is a guy that showed a lot of skill in the AHL, just hasn't been able to get it to go in the NHL. And I think when you look at a couple of the forwards, like when Scott Laughton comes back in the lineup, that will shake some things up. They still have Easton Cowan there. They brought in Sammy Blais, who I don't believe he's played yet. So they've got some options that if they were to move on, like, they could fill that role with someone who's a bit more of a fourth line type player. They also have David Camp. I know they sent him down for cap reasons, but they still have him in the system technically. Maybe you give an opportunity to, you know, Jacob Quillen, who I thought was really good. He's making $875K. So if they want a safe cap and trade Robertson, just get that. Like, they have guys who could do other roles and would be fine. I think they're still just, it feels like they were still betting high on that Robertson upside, and just the upside's just not there at this point. And like, Reichel would be a good fit, someone who he's been given opportunities to play with some quality players in Chicago. It just hasn't worked, but you still see signs of someone that when he figures it out, he can be effective. I don't know if Toronto's the right location for him, particularly for that. At the same time, you know, Chicago felt like a place where if you really needed to restart your game and get a good opportunity, that would be the place to do it. And he hasn't been able to do it. So it'll be interesting, but I think you get a bit of speed and skill there, and a guy who could maybe play in the middle six, and you hope could be good. But I think right now, both those players in general just need to move somewhere.
A name you brought up here, I do want to bring him up, my good buddy Adam Martin. I've been trying to get some questions ahead of time for the show, and Adam's a big Leafs fan. He says, what do you think will happen with Easton Cowan? He was a scratch again last night. What do you think they're kind of doing with him at this point?
See, the one thing about when you have a prospect like that, Brady Martin on Nashville, right before he was sent down today, is another good example of a guy where, like, they see more value in a young player practicing and playing with NHL players and NHL coaches than necessarily going playing down. Brady Martin in particular, started the season as the first line center in Nashville, played 3 games, and they just sent him back. But they saw that being more beneficial than him going out and just beating up on OHL goalies. With Easton Cowan, I think he should just be playing. And I do think that the bulk of his playing time should be with the Toronto Marlies this year. And that's because, for as good as he was in the OHL, going from the OHL to the NHL is still a massive jump forward. No matter how good of a player you are. Matthew Schaefer is kind of a unicorn in this situation here. Also a different position, not a good team, things like that. So I think with Cowan, he should be playing. Like, maximize his playing time, give him as many opportunities to prove himself, and play a variety of roles. Play, if he's going to play in the NHL, I don't hate him being on the third or fourth line and learning to be a grinder. If you send him to the AHL, say, hey, go out there and score. You combine that together, you're going to get a hardworking forward who can score. And I think with him, I don't know how much value having him play so little and then sitting out really is going to have. He just needs to get ice time. And that's why sooner rather than later, I think he'll end up with the Marlies.
Okay, there we go. A couple questions here from John, and then we got one on Twitter as well. He says, "Great guest." Yes, that's all we get here on the Fanatics View Hockey Show is great guests. How the heck is Adam Vantilli a W prospect? Are these scouts a bit salty? I'd have him at a B myself. I know you follow the prospects. Any thoughts on Adam Vantilli?
Yeah, so I asked a couple scouts about that, and like I had him in my first ranking. I had him as a first round pick, but the reality is, since then I've updated that, and a lot of skill and stuff, but a lot of scouts are like, okay, is he strong enough at the next level? He's got a lot of time to figure that out, but a lot of scouts don't like him at all. Whether it be some concerns about attitude, or concerns about his play away from the puck. Will he be able to handle the game physically? We'll see, but I think at the same time, the fact he's putting up a point per game at Michigan is really impressive. So I don't think he's going to go that high in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 4th or 5th round pick, but in terms of pure skill, there's first round talent there. It's just whether or not everything else will be able to work. Because that's the thing. There's a lot of guys who have first round pure skill that don't come close to touching the NHL. And it's because you're just not a complete player. And I've watched Adam Valentini since like 2021. And I can tell you tons of skill. I'm not sure he's going to put it up at the next level.
Yeah, and you said it correctly there, Adam Valentini. For some reason, my brain went to Adam Fantilli from the Jackets. I don't know why, but that's just the way it happened today. My apologies for that. So yeah, it's interesting keeping an eye on this year's draft. Have you been keeping? I'm sure you have. Gavin McKenna over there in the NCAA. It's been, it seems like more of a challenge for him over there. I know he hasn't been like completely lighting it up, but I'm sure you're keeping tabs on what he's doing.
Yeah. Dude's amazing, right? Like that's just like this guy's, he's a special player. And he started off playing against, ASU, not the toughest program of all time. And he put up some points early on against some maybe belowish average programs overall, but Penn State is flying right now. They've got a lot of really good offensive weapons. They don't necessarily need him to go out there and dominate. Like Charlie Serrato, Carolina Hurricanes prospect, has 15 points in 6 games. Like absolutely nuts what he's doing. For McKenna, it's just adjusting, learning how to play against older competition, but getting a point per game, it doesn't really matter who you're playing against, is still impressive. And I think the real challenge will be when they start playing tougher teams. Long Island University, not exactly the toughest team of all time to play against, and they barely beat Long Island that game on Friday last week. Clarkson, again, situation where not the toughest competition you're ever going to find. ASU, not very deep, but I think easing him into college hockey this way has been really good for him. He's been able to learn, make mistakes, and learn from those. And first overall prospect, no question about it.
So I bring up McKenna because we have a question here from Michael on Twitter. He says, "Is it too late to start the McTank for McKenna?" People got to relax. Like, Tampa Bay's not doing well right now. Florida's struggling a bit. Like, this is just that time of the year where you see teams that, it's not really an indication of where the season's headed, I don't think. I mean, the Leafs are 3-3, but, again, like, this is still a playoff team. Like, they're not that, like, even losing Mitch Marner and getting the replacements they got, they're not going to be a non-play. I'd be pretty surprised if they miss the playoffs still. There's still a lot of teams that are far worse than Toronto is. I'm sure you're used to this just with the fan base being, freaking out after 6 games.
Yeah, I think Toronto should just fold in on the season. Who cares? Just trade Matthews for a conditional 7th round pick. Go all on and Gavin McKenna. No, it's this point in the season. It's way too early for anything. Like the Oilers, I think it was 2 years ago, were like dead last at this point of the year, and last year near the bottom of the standings again, and they made the Cup final 2 years in a row. Florida, similar situation when they lost to Vegas. 7 games is not a big sample size.
20 games is probably the mark where you can kind of start seeing how things are going, right? I would say.
Yeah, 10, 15, 20. Like, that's when you really start to say, okay, like, we need to start moving. Like, you don't want to, like, points are so valuable, right? Like, you look at Montreal making the playoffs basically on, like, the last day of the season last year. Like, things like that. Like, you don't want to put yourself in a situation like that. But good teams are going to figure it out. Like Toronto is going to figure it out here. And I think in a situation where you don't need to rely on Stolarz every night and you can say, okay, well, Joseph Woll could be just as good. I think they'll make them both better that way. I think Toronto will be a bit more of a dangerous team. But right now, just 7 games, guys. Enjoy the Blue Jays for now. Worry about it afterwards.
Well, and I think too, not having Wall, like, one of the benefits of being having the Leafs sort of a lineup is that you have that 1-2 punch of Stolarz and Wall. This is something I talk about a lot on the show. Is that I think there are certain teams that are lucky that their starters are able to handle that load or able to play, because there's a lot of backup goalies that I don't know if they can give you those wins. I mean, we saw this last week with Dallas with playing the Canucks. They were up 2-0, and Casey DeSmith. I've seen it here in Vancouver. I've seen it in Pittsburgh. He just has bad games sometimes. Like I think DeSmith is probably one of the better backups in the league, but it just goes to show, like, you do need, kind of that 1-2 punch now, as we've seen certain goalies, like Hellebuck as an example last year in the playoffs with Winnipeg. I think he was overplayed. And then you add in the Four Nations. Like, there's just so many things that you have to manage when it comes to goaltending. And I think one of the real assets of the Leafs is that they have Stolarz at, in my opinion, a very reasonable cap hit. You've got Joseph Woll as well. That's a big benefit for the Leafs down the line. They might not have a replacement for Mitch Marner, but you know how many teams would kill to have like a nice 1-2 punch like that? Look at Edmonton. Like, they're not, as great as they've done. Like, they are still running back the same tandem that every year there's question marks on it. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Skinner's like a bad goalie, but I just think that tandem, they've got to maybe switch that up a little bit. So that's something I think once Woll comes back, you're going to have games where Stolarz can get the rest, and you've got that confidence in having a capable backup. I look at the same thing with Vancouver. I know Lankinen didn't play great last night, but again, he's one of the better backups in the league. Like, I see that as sort of a trend now with some of the better teams, is that they do have kind of two solid goaltenders, maybe not like a, like a Shesterkin or whatever, and then some other guy, but they, again, it's fairly well balanced, I think. What do you think of that?
100%. And if any NHL teams need a goalie, I'm about to play my 5th game in 3 days today. So
still doing the floor hockey? Yeah.
Yeah. Ready to, one of my teams, we're going to the finals next week. And then
congrats.
Last night I played 2 doubleheaders, and tonight will only be 1 game. It's going to be really easy for me. Comparison. But yeah, I think you look at, people point out that guys like Mika Kiprusoff and Roberto Luongo and Marty Brodeur, guys like that could play 70, 75 games, and it didn't seem to slow them down. Look at Vancouver with how much Luongo played. Like, could they have won a couple more cups when Luongo, or won a cup, I should say.
They haven't won
Luongo.
any, just to clarify, but yes.
Yes, win a cup.
Yeah.
If,
cup,
Curtis Sanford could also be really good for 25, 30 games type thing, right?
Yeah.
Like what if Brodeur didn't have to play 75 games because Scott Clemmensen was a wild card as your backup? Like, what if you had a good backup goalie? I think when you look at that, like, teams are smarter with their goalie deployments now. And I think with Eric Comrie specifically in Winnipeg has shown he could play some good hockey. So why do they continue to play Connor Hellebuck so much? That's a great question. Like, he is the best goalie in the NHL, but you don't want to overwork him. And with the Rangers, like Shesterkin's such a good goalie, highest paid goalie, everything like that. But you need to be able to rely on that backup goalie there too. And Jonathan Quick is a pretty decent backup goalie. The stats are definitely not the near Vezina caliber numbers he was capable of well over a decade ago, but he's still a very experienced backup goalie who can win you a couple games. You need guys like that. And so that's why we're seeing tandems becoming more prevalent. Like, Colorado's a really good example where they just overhauled their goalies last year. Right now, Mackenzie Blackwood's hurt. Scott Wedgwood's playing like out of his mind. He's won, I think, all but 2 of his starts so far. And they were both, the 2 games they lost were, I think, overtime losses. And in those wins, he's only allowed 1 goal in each of them. Like, that's a dude on a mission right now. And like, they still got Blackwood coming back, who is the better of the 2 goalies, and being able to rely on that is going to make them so dangerous. So having 2 goalies that you can rely on every single night is so important.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, for example, Vegas last night, Hill's out with an injury. I haven't got an update this morning on how that is, but I know Carter Hart, I can't believe, play until December, and I think even then he's got to do the AHL first. So you've got Schmid as your backup, right? Like, this is one thing that people don't think about. Like, I know Vegas is on a wagon right now, and they look like a great team, and they're, everything's going well, but like, this is one area I looked at in the offseason where it's like, okay, if Hill goes down, like, do you feel comfortable about having that? Schmid is his backup, I'm pretty sure. Are you comfortable with that? Like, this is why they went and got Carter Hart and dealt with all the backlash and all that stuff, because they are about winning and they know that they can't get it done with that tandem, I think. And so, yeah, I'm curious, like, right now, what's going to happen with Aiden Hill, because I did see he left last night. Yeah,
like, I don't know if fixing your goaltending tandem with a guy who hasn't played competitive hockey in as long as Carter Hart is the answer. That being said, I think, for Akira Schmid, he played well in his 5 games in the NHL last year, but primarily he was in the AHL and was not great. And I'd say actually was powered a little bit at times by, or most of the season, I should say, by Carl Lindbaum. Well, they just called Carl Lindbaum up, and that's a guy I'm really high on. He's a Swedish goalie, played really well in Sweden. Like he had like a 930 save percentage in the second tier Swedish league, which second tier, but that's still big for a goalie that was like, I think at the age of 20 years old, putting up a save percentage like that in a pro league is still really impressive. And he was really good then when he got promoted to the top league the year after. So all he's done is just really impress, and he's been really good so far this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Carl Lindbaum ends up becoming the starter while Hill's out. But I think you just got to believe in your goaltending depth right now. And I think with Vegas, they've shown they can win games without stellar goaltending. They don't necessarily, like, Adin Hill's not a Vezina Trophy caliber goalie, no. But Jack Eichel's got 16 points and Stone's got like 13. Marner's playing really well. Dorofeyev can't be stopped scoring. And like when you look at the guy, like the Leafs, talking about how they haven't been able to get a lot of goals, like those are all the guys scoring for Leafs. And then there's also like Barbashev and there's Hurdle and there's Carlson. Like that's a deep team. So they don't necessarily need a goalie to be a star. They just need them to not lose games. And I think when you got Lindbaum there and Schmidt, I think you might be okay.
Question here from Jared, and we'll answer this one together because I have some thoughts. You enjoying the hockey season so far? I know it's early, but anything really surprised you so far? So I'd say the one for me, well, obviously I'm enjoying the season. I love hockey being back. Like even just having junior hockey back. Like my son went to the Giants game on the weekend, like Vancouver Giants. Like it's good to have hockey back. I prefer having hockey on than not. And then as far as surprises, I didn't think Calgary would be this bad. I'm starting to wonder, was Dustin, I don't think Dustin Wolf's a flash in the pan, but like, it's not looking good for him this season. I don't know what's going on there. And I remember watching that game, a couple weeks ago, the opener with Calgary and Vancouver. And I thought, okay, well, Vancouver's, that's a good win that they got. I mean, 5-1. I know they struggled a bit early on. And then you see Vancouver the next two games getting completely outclassed by Edmonton, losing to St. Louis in a game that I went to, and it was just miserable. They couldn't do any offense whatsoever. And Calgary just isn't getting a lot of wins. Like, we're talking about the Leafs tanking for, McKenna. I think Calgary right now is a good candidate the way things are going, and they got to turn things around a bit here because they're a team that last year, like I said, they were on the bubble. Like that's a team for me that I do think is kind of becoming like almost Nashville last year. Well, what are your thoughts on like surprises so far this year?
So if Calgary, Wolf's not playing well, but it doesn't help when your top point producer also hasn't scored a goal, and Nazem Kadri, he's got 4 assists. And then looking at the stats here, Backlund 1 point, Connor Zary 1 point, Igor Sharangovich 1 point. Those are guys who are playing a lot of minutes. And Zane Parekh, 0 points as well for a playmaking defenseman. I do wonder if he'll go to the OHL just because, like, he's not playing a ton, not getting the opportunities, he's not producing. Do you say, okay, hey, we're just going to be patient with you instead of throwing you to the Wolves? The biggest surprise for me, Calgary definitely can't score. Like, that's the thing. Like, they're not getting goals. You can't win. If your goalie's not playing great, well, that's one thing. But if you can't score either, you typically need goals to win a game. That's typically how hockey games are played. But the big surprise for me is how good Matthew Schaefer has been. And first overall pick, high expectations guy I've been very high on for like 4 or 5 years now at this point. But he played almost nothing last year. Like between all the exhibition games, pre-tournament games of the World Juniors, OHL, he played 30 games total last year. Heading into the preseason this year, he had only played in, I believe it was 2 exhibition games of Canada, the World Junior Summer Showcase. So that's not a lot of competitive hockey, and that was not a competitive tournament. No one was playing at 100% there. For him to come out here and have a point every single one of his games so far, blowing my mind how good he is. But at the same time, like, he is a future Norris Trophy finalist, 100%, maybe even a winner one day. He's so smart. He thinks the game at such a high level, like Cale Makar. He skates so well, kind of like Lane Hudson. You put everything together, like, this is a guy who's going to be a cornerstone of the Islanders. And it's good that they're giving him so many opportunities. They've been missing some guys, like Alexander Romanov's hurt right now, and he's been able to find ways to continue to shine. So Matthew Schaefer playing way better than I thought he would right now as a rookie, given how little he played last season.
And that brings me to my next question. We're going to wrap things up here shortly. But like, I do wonder, like, Schaefer's looked outstanding, and it's super encouraging to see like a first overall pick, like, kind of do that. I'm looking at the Islanders at 3-3. Like, I still don't know if this is a playoff team. Like, I do wonder, of all years, if there's a year to start selling, because let's be honest, in the offseason, the only team that was selling was Pittsburgh. And that, when you have a team that wants win now trades, like that's why there was such little movement. like I kind of predicted this would happen, but like I think you're going to start to see teams that are struggling, past the 20 game marks, basically forced to be sellers, because it's like, look, like, or maybe they're going to be stubborn and stay the course and hope that it works out. But like I do look at a team like Calgary, a team like maybe the Islanders, and the reason I say that is because you look at the Islanders and what they have to offer on the trade market right now. They got a lot of centers, right? Calgary's got Nazem Kadri. You don't think there's teams that would want Nazem Kadri even with him struggling as a second line center? Like I do wonder with such a strong draft class that maybe they do look at, selling off some of those assets. Do you think that's a possibility with certain teams that, not like your San Jose's, because obviously they have like enough, draft capital. They're not looking to add more, I don't think. But do you see maybe like an Islanders or Calgary as a potential, seller come, American Thanksgiving, where they're like, look, like it's not looking good. Let's take advantage of the situation.
I think with Calgary, it feels like a foregone conclusion. They'll trade Rasmus Anderson at some point, the defenseman. Kadri will obviously stay in the rumor mill for a long time here. The problem is I don't know how many other trade assets they have. Like the big one they had last year was Daniel Vladar, and he's gone. So I don't really know what they would do, but it'd be interesting. Maybe they can trade some, like, hell, maybe trade Joel Farabee again after the Flyers just traded him last year and see what happens there. Islanders are kind of in a similar situation here, but they've got some opportunities here where they've now got some decent prospects. They've got some guys that could ship off, and just we'll see what happens here. It still feels too early because again, you look at Pittsburgh was a team most people expected to do really bad, and they're in a 4-way tie in the Metropolitan Division for first overall, or for first in the division. So like so much could change here. Detroit, Montreal, Florida, like Detroit in general could just fall off a cliff, and now they're trading guys off. So it feels too early. If the Rangers keep falling off, like is Artemi Panarin gone? He's going to be a pending UFA. Has he become the biggest player in the market? That'd be interesting. Buffalo, a lot of question marks about what that team's going to be able to do going forward. Tampa Bay, I'd assume would be a buyer more than anything to try and get back into that playoff race, but it still feels early. But that's part of what it's kind of a dull part of the season in the NHL, where we're still trying to figure out everything, and everyone's already looking towards trades. But that's what makes the sport fun.
Well, I just think of like, I'm not saying they would trade him, but like, the Islanders ever wanted to trade Bo Horvat, like that's going to fetch you a really good return right now, because so many teams need a second line center. And I just think like if you have a first round pick for next year's draft, like that, and maybe, another prospect like that might be able to do it. I don't know. Like I'm kind of, and I look at the Canucks, like Philip Cheadle just went down. His career might be over now. I mean, that was a tough hit on Tom Wilson. I don't think it was a dirty hit, but I mean, this was always a liability with Cheadle. He's got 5 or 6 concussions. Like I do wonder, do they look at a Calgary and go, maybe we will overpay to get Nazem Kadri, because we might not make the playoffs if we have Max Sasson as our second line center. You know what I mean? Like but that's what I'm saying. Like, and we saw that last night against Pittsburgh. Like the Canucks did very well in the first period. They kind of faltered after that, and part of that is just it's basically the Abbotsford Canucks playing right now because they have so many injuries. Lekramaki, Cheadle's out, Teddy Bluger, Brock Besser's out due to personal reasons. So I do wonder if some of these teams are going to make panic trades, and this is where I wonder, like, do you take advantage of the fact that next year's draft's really strong? Just quickly, we talked about Pittsburgh. So yeah, if I had to make a prediction, I think Tampa Bay's going to figure it out. I think Edmonton's going to figure it out. Edmonton does this every year where they go in like a slump. I think the Penguins will regress. I still, as much as I want Arthur Silovs to like succeed and do well, I wish him well. Like I think a lot of Canucks fans feel the same way. I just still have questions about him being a regular NHL starter in general, because as you know, like anyone else, like just because you're an AHL MVP doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to pan out in the NHL. So those are kind of the opposite sides I'm looking at here. Are there any teams for you that you think will regress, or teams that are doing bad that you think will do better?
Well, I'll start with that one. I think, Edmonton, Minnesota, Dallas are all 3 teams I expect should be challenging for playoff spots. Dallas 3-3-0 to start is a little surprising, but I think that when they're fully healthy and Duchesne back, like that will be a bit of a different story for them. I think Philly is going to regress. Good start to the season. Still not a great team. I still don't really trust them over a full season here. Pittsburgh, I do expect to regress. Detroit, I expect to regress, but still be in that playoff one. So, and then the Leafs, Tampa, those are teams that I think will be back. Like the fact that those 2 teams are not in the playoff spot right now, like, oh, that's interesting. But again, 6, 7, 8 games of the season, not exactly a big deal. I do wonder if the Ottawa Senators are going to figure it out here. They have been playing without Brady Tkachuk for a portion here.
The injury, you're right about that. Yeah,
Shane Pinto's played really well, but more guys need to step up there. But again, still early. This is the kind of the fun part of the year where fan base is like, look, our team's number one, or our team's up in the playoffs. And then come April, it's like, oh, what do we do the rest of the spring?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's overreaction time, as they say. Steven, you're the best. Thanks so much for doing this. Anything you got coming up you want to plug here on the show, by all means, and let people know where they can follow you on social media.
Yeah, follow me, SLS Hockey. I'll be there's so many events going on between NHL, junior hockey, everything like that. I'll be posting there, and I know everyone's going to be not watching the Blue Jays. They're going to be watching my ball hockey team go for the championship next Monday.
Yeah,
Rumor is, I know there was like 300,000 people trying to get Blue Jays tickets. I think there were like 500,000 people trying to get tickets for our 9 p.m. game on a Monday night, but we're expecting a full crowd.
That's awesome. I coach ball hockey. That's my son plays. We have been doing it 3 years. This will be year 4. I think the kids like it better than ice hockey. Personally, it's less stress. It's easier equipment and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun. So shout out to the ball hockey leagues out there. They're good for this country. So
it's cheap. It's the cheapest way of getting into hockey, and that's what I keep trying to get people to do. Like I've got people playing the sport now that never would have played hockey otherwise, and I get to meet a lot of people who, again, never played ice hockey, didn't grow up in an area where skating was a thing, and now are obsessed with the sport. And that's kind of why I like this portion of hockey. I grew up playing ice hockey my whole life.
Same here. Yeah.
It's nice having a version where it's less stress, a lot less expensive. Like someone was telling me, like, oh, this beer league, come join this beer league, it's $700. I'm like, I pay like $50 a year for ball hockey. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I'm getting paid to play tonight. Like, why would I want to go do this?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, good luck, Steven. We'll keep in touch and get you back on soon. Maybe we'll get you back on when actually we have actual tangible evidence to talk about how the season's going to go. So there we go. Take care, Steven. Appreciate it, man. There you go. That is Steven Ellis, one of the best out there, one of the regulars that I bring on every couple months. Former coworker of mine, actually. I think I've told this story, but Steven and I worked a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We worked on Nick Kiprios' show, which was just called Real Kipper. I know now he's got Real Kipper and Born on Sportsnet, but Steven and I worked on his show. Just the show that he was doing on his own before he went back to Sportsnet. So great. And I've met Steven. We met up at the NHL draft last year. That was a lot of fun. So not this past draft before, the one at the Sphere. So great having Steven on. Always like getting guests on for a little bit. Keep the questions coming. John, I know you're in the chat. Billy, we'll get to all these now. A lot of action happening last night in the NHL. We'll go with, we'll start with our guy. Billy, by the way, great having you on the stream yesterday, man. I did a call-in show yesterday on my main channel. Billy was one of the great guys that hopped on, and always love talking some hockey with him. And I still got to get out to St. Louis and see a game one of these days. We got to go grab a beer and watch a game sometime. That would be awesome. But I saw St. Louis came close last night. They ended up losing last night, I believe, to the Kings. John saying, I'm pleasantly surprised with Jonathan Toews. Didn't expect him to stay as the 2 seed, but for now I like it. It's been a good story. I would agree with that. I think that Elliot Friedman did an interview recently with Donnie and Dolly, my favorite sports show here locally, and was talking about Toews and said that he did not expect like things to go as well as they're going, and talked about I guess he was really out of shape, obviously, for the time that he was away, and now that he's come back, he's really gotten into form. And listen, it's a great story, and unfortunately a lot of that's going to be overshadowed by the things that happened with the Blackhawks way back when, and that's a totally different topic we can talk for another day. But if we're just focusing on Jonathan Toews the player, it is a very good story. I hope it gets a lot of coverage. Glad you pointed that out there, John. Uyghurs -9 so far this season. Yikes. Yeah, they just, again, and we forget too, Huberdeau's still out, right? I think that's part of it too. And not that he was helping out too much anyways, but if you're not getting your top guys scoring, it's pretty hard to expect a Joel Farabee to be your bulk of goal scoring. What do you guys think of Dallas with a new coach? To me, they've lost some games they should have won on paper. Yeah, I have some question marks about Glenn Gultson. We had Travis Tyler on here a couple weeks ago. I saw Glenn here in Vancouver. He was, I think he was assistant for sure. I don't know if he was, I think he might have coached maybe one game when Tortorella was out. I can't remember, but I don't know. I was a bit surprised that Dallas didn't go with someone a bit more Gultson has experience, but some veteran coach. For example, Peter Laviolette's still out there. I don't know if there's been any talk about any teams bringing him in, but he's won cups. That's, that was the guy I thought they were going to get, or at the very least go with someone that's really been hot right now, like a Manny Malhotra, who just won the Calder Cup with Abbotsford and has ties to Dallas. He actually played a season or two with the Stars. So I don't know. I don't know if it's coaching thing. I need to maybe ask Travis about that one, because again, last week they folded against Vancouver. I was so I'll tell the story from last week. I was at a local mixed martial arts event here in Vancouver a couple days before the UFC card on the Saturday night. And I was at the event, and the ring announcer there is a big Canucks fan. And he had the game on just on his tablet while the fights were going on, which, I mean, I was doing both. I was paying attention to both, to be fair. I wasn't ignoring the fights. But I saw the first period, and, I can't hear it with commentary or anything. I just saw the score. And it's 2-0 Dallas in the first period. Canucks have like 2 shots. And I'm like, this is the St. Louis game all over again. Like they can't score. They can't generate offense. Dallas is going to smoke this team. I think I actually texted my boss over here at Fanatics, Taylor, being like, they're going to lose like 8-1. And they come back and win. They score 4 goals in the third period. Now, a lot of that was Casey DeSmith. I don't think he played very well. But, I mean, those are games you should win. You're getting a Vancouver team that was depleted, losing at home on the Monday. They're on the road. Dallas has got to win games like that, And again, you can chalk that one up to Casey DeSmith. But what's happened since then, I actually don't even – I'm going to just quickly take a look at who they're losing to. So, yeah, I mean, they lost they lost to the Canucks. They lose to the Blues. I think the Blues are a pretty good team this year. So I don't necessarily – let's show you what I'm seeing here, so we can all kind of line this up. But I mean, the Blues, you look at it there, they're also 3-2, but you look at the stats here, the Blues didn't get a ton of shots. There was a pretty low shooting game. Just 21 shots on net for St. Louis in that one. That was a closer game. I don't mind that loss. This one, though, Columbus, and listen, we've had Troy on here a bunch of times where a lot of us, myself included, are very high in Columbus this year. But this is one, too, where you look at it there, Merzlikins, like they're not getting a lot of shots. Right, you're getting 23 shots. That's not going to get you a lot of goals. And then you look on the other end, Jake Ottinger, facing more shots than Jet Greaves did. Or no, it was Merzlikins. They lost with Merzlikins in net? Jesus. Okay, so yeah, again, they'll figure it out. Listen, I think there is a case that maybe DeBoer was the better choice, but DeBoer caused his exit by throwing Jake Ottinger under the bus and the way he handled that whole thing. You can't do that. I mean, DeBoer should know better. If he wanted, it looked to me like DeBoer wanted out anyways, because why would you say something like that? Like, he basically threw Ottinger and the rest of the team under the bus. Had Goldson in Calgary for a couple of years. I find him better as an assistant coach. I would agree with that. Yeah, same in Vancouver. Rather have DeBoer myself, but I guess that was done in the room. Exactly. What do you think will be the first coach fired this season? Great call. Well, it won't be Calgary's coach Huska, because I believe they just signed him to a new deal. Although you never know. I think Canucks signed Travis Green to an extension, and then he ends up getting fired in November. Let me look at the standings here real quick. Is there like a team that like is maybe underperforming? Like obviously Rangers have most of these teams have new coaches, right? Senators aren't going to fire their guy. Lindy Ruff in Buffalo, maybe, if they continue to lose. That could be one, which, they've gone through, I don't know how many coaches. We had Mike Straw in here, what was it, last week, talking about them. Let's look in the West. Is there any teams that are like surprisingly, are they going to still keep around Andrew Burnett in Nashville? This is another team. I'm like, why did they not do anything in the offseason? Like Nashville has pretty much the exact same roster they had last year. They didn't have any major injuries. They didn't make the playoffs. They weren't even close. And you're running back the same roster, 2-3 right now. That's concerning. It's not good. Yeah. Kings maybe too. I don't think the Kings are going to be a playoff team this year. Don't like the way Ken Holland also came in this year. What's his name? Hillier was not a Ken Holland guy. He could be gone too. So yeah, to answer my long-winded answer to this would be keep an eye on Jim Hillier in LA. Keep an eye on Andrew Burnett in Nashville. I don't think even with the Wild doing what they're doing now, I don't think, Dean Evason. No, it's not Dean Evason. That was their old coach. Who's their coach now? It is Dean Evason. I can't remember. Who's the Wild's head coach? Why am I getting mixed up here? Minnesota Wild head coach. Thought it was Dean Evason. Oh, it's John Hines. That's right. Evanson's in Columbus now, I think. Yeah, I don't think Hines will get let go. So yeah, those would be ones I would look at. The ones that I mentioned there, as far as the Kings, the Predators, and then over in the East, maybe Lindy Ruff in Buffalo. Yeah, that's what I would look at. Biggest surprise to me so far, I thought Detroit would be better. They are flying. Canadians have had a great start. Utah looks strong deep team. I've always thought Utah was a good team. Even last year, like I saw that game the Canucks played there. That's when they had all the injuries to Marino and so many other players, and they were like close to the playoffs. And it seems like they got good goaltending, good coaching. very good owner. Like that alone, good ownership goes a long way. That's part of the reason why, a lot of Canucks fans are banging their heads against the wall, because the ownership continues to just be bad on all fronts, like with a lot of the decisions they make. But Utah, I mean, hey, you want a practice facility? Sure. We're going to dig up this mall and make this really cool state-of-the-art practice facility. Canucks still don't have a practice facility. They're training at Rogers Arena in UBC. It's not good. So that's part of it too. As well. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Ottawa's been a big disappointment, Tampa too, but they'll turn it around. Both those teams will turn it around. I'll call that right now. Although, like Steven mentioned, with Brady Tkachuk being out, how long is Brady out for? That's one thing to take a look at. Brady Tkachuk injury. By the way, great episode of Brady Tkachuk. Episode of on Amazon Prime, the whatever it's called, Inside the NHL. What's that show called? The reality series they do. I watched that episode, Brady Tkachuk. Very well done. Love that show. Maybe one of my favorite shows out there right now. 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, that could be tough. That's a big piece for Ottawa that's going to be out. But again, I think even without him, they're probably still a playoff team. We'll see. Maybe Jacob will get his wish about John Cooper. John Cooper's never getting fired. John Cooper's like Mike Sullivan. Like, it will take Tampa would have to be like a non-playoff team for like 6 seasons for them to get rid of John Cooper. Like, John Cooper's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but like, he just seems so beloved there. I mean, he's Team Canada's head coach. Like, they're not going to get rid of him. And yeah, Jacob, little reactionary there in our Discord about that type of stuff. Let's get a few more questions here, guys. We'll do about another 5 minutes. Again, great stuff there from Stephen Ellis here on the show. Always appreciate him tuning in and joining us here on the show. Lots of good insights on the Leafs. What else? What else, guys? What else is on your mind as far as hockey stuff goes? Yeah, let's take a look at the stand. Actually, you know what? Let's go over, like we normally do on the show. Let's look at some of the scores last night. Let's look ahead to some of the games. Then we'll go over the standings a little bit too before we wrap things up here. So if you look here, a couple of the games last night. Yeah, I mentioned it there. The Canucks and the Penguins. I actually didn't see the shots on net. So yeah, Lankinen. It's been a tough start to the year for him. Not that the team bailed him out. Quinn Hughes surprisingly has not been very good this season. I feel like he's hurt. Certainly looks that way. But Connor Garland again continued. Connor Garland scoring on the first shot of the game yesterday. So good on Connor Garland. That contract looking very good right now. Brazeau again continuing to do very well for Pittsburgh. That's been a good pickup for them. A goal and 2 assists. Yeah, again, you need more than 24 shots on Arthur Seelovs. Canucks have got to get more shots on goal. So that was disappointing. I'm on the radio, so I'll tell you what happened yesterday. I'm going to Coach Soccer yesterday, listening on the radio. Canucks score, it's 1-0, and then Pittsburgh ties it up. And I go to my game, and then I coach soccer. And then after soccer practice, my other coach on my team, he's like, "Oh, it's 4-1." I go, "Oh, Canucks are doing great." No, it's 4-1 Pittsburgh. I was like, "What? How did they fall apart?" It ends up being 5-1. Tough game there for the Canucks. Islanders get the win yesterday over San Jose. That's good. We talked about Matthew Schaefer. Did he end up? Yeah, look at that. A goal and an assist. Love to see it. And Canadian too. That's going to be good for the future. Right? That's awesome. Capitals get a win over the Kraken at home. That's good. Oilers get a win over Senators. They needed that. Oilers were on a bit of a slide prior to that. Panthers beat the Bruins and Brad Marchand's return. The Devils and Leafs, we talked about that. Ducks and the Predators as well. By the way, I forgot to ask I forgot to ask Steven about Anthony Stolartz's comments, but oh well, we'll do that next time. Yeah, Ducks beat the Predators. Again, Predators losing there. Big win there for the Jackets. Kings beating the Blues. That was Kempe scoring in overtime. And then the Mammoth beating the Avalanche in overtime. That's a big win for them. By the way, I'm growing on the Mammoth logo and the colors and all that. I wanted Yeti, and obviously that wasn't going to happen. But liking the fact that, the Mammoth is just kind of a cool logo, and it looks nice there. And who's getting it done for the Mammoth? Mikhail Sergachev. Very good for them. Also got Caden Keller with 2 assists as well, too. So very interesting. And as we take a quick look at the standings, keep the questions coming, John, or whoever else is in the chat. Right now, the way too early standings are as follows. You got the Wings at 5-1. I think some aggression is there. Same thing with Canadians at 5-2. Panthers are 4-4. Leafs are 3-3. Bruins are 3-5. Senators, Sabre. Like, if I had to switch some of these, I would put the Lightning and Senators probably in place of the Red Wings and maybe where the Bruins are a little bit. I think the Panthers, and all that. Well, actually, let's just go to overall standings. That'll give you a better idea. NHL.com standings. So if you look at the overall standings, that's the one where you got to kind of see who's going to swap out, swap in. Again, I would look at, if we look, starting at the league. I want the actual conference, but again, like I expect some of these teams to regress a little bit that I mentioned there. As far as on the other side of the equation, Penguins, I think, will regress. I think you'll see the Jackets in place of the Penguins. The rest of the team, I kind of expect to fall. Capitals will, I think, still make the playoffs, but I'm expecting some regression there too. high PDO stats last year. And then in the West, pretty much what I expect. I think the Blackhawks will cool off a little bit. I could see the Stars and the Wild picking it up a little bit. Nashville, I think, will still be at the bottom. And then on the other side, the Oilers and the I think Kraken might make the playoffs this year, actually. Could see that happening. Canucks, we'll see. They got some major injuries right now. And like I said, they're playing mainly like a AHL roster at this point. Did you see Marchand tribute video? Well done. I haven't seen it, but all things I've heard is very well done. And, again, I think a lot of people here in Vancouver not hating Brad Marchand anymore for what he did for the Four Nations. So the report, the Canucks are looking for centers. Who would you push for? It's tough because, do you want to mortgage your future? I mean, here's the thing with Cheadle. You knew this going in, but, his career might be over. There has to be that possibility on the table. This is Michael Furlan all over again. You guys remember? A couple seasons ago, the Canucks got Michael Furlan from Carolina, barely played for the team. I forget how many games he had. Actually, I'm going to go look that up right now. He was just, barely played. He had, 14 games for the Canucks, and he was done. Cheadle's kind of looking the same way. I mean, if you can get a reasonable price on Nazem Kadri, I think he's a short-term solution. I mean, long-term, you want someone that's a little bit better, but he's going to come at a big cost, right? Like I was saying to Steven, you're going to have teams that I think have huge advantages that they have a center, and that's what every team's looking for, and it's who's going to, price the highest. So, I kind of hope the Canucks, if I had a preference, I would want the Canucks to get someone that's not going to cost too much, that is just sort of a stay gap center. As an example, I don't think he's going to make a difference, but maybe he can hold you over for a bit, is maybe try and, pry Pajot out of New York. How much are you giving up for him? He hasn't been very good. If we look at Pajot's stats, for the Islanders, I mean, I think he's been down the last couple of years. He's certainly not worth his contract. I guess he had 42 points last year, but how much is he making? He is a, what's his cap hit? And the Canucks do have some cap space after trading Dakota Joshua, which sucks to hear that he's struggling in Toronto. I haven't really been paying attention. I wish him well. Yeah, he's $5 million a season. I don't think the Canucks even have that cap space. They might have to move something. Yeah, they don't. If you put Cheadle on the IR, I don't know how the math would work there, but I'm looking at Cheadle's contract. He comes in at 4.47. So yeah, you could make that work with the cap space. If you put him on long-term injured reserve, that could work. Kraken looking decent even without Kakko. That's true. Again, I've been impressed with Seattle. Do you think Chicago looks improved this season? They seem to have had some good wins, but I haven't followed everything. Yeah, they do. And I think a big part of that is they finally have a goaltender. Spencer Knight is their starter. They've gone through the carousel of Peter Mrazek and who else have they had in there? So many different goalies. Kevin Lankinen was there at one point. So I think they've kind of figured out the goaltending. And I think, I still don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're a team that certainly improved. Yeah, no, of course. It was great having you on. We'll definitely do those call-in shows more often, and we'll do the members-only Q&A here soon for our Patreon as well. Okay, maybe we'll get one more question, guys. We'll take off a little bit earlier here today. We usually do about 45 minutes on this show. Again, appreciate you guys tuning in. We do this show every week, and like to get a variety of different guests on. Still like to get some new guests on, but it's been hard. It's not really my world, as the hockey world, right? I'm more an MMA guy, but we'll have to see. What else do we got? Hope all is well. Yeah, John, and shout out to John, man. Every week comes here. Great guy in our Discord. Can't say enough good things about John, and very, very knowledgeable when it comes to hockey. And my go-to guy, by the way, when it comes to NCAA hockey, because I just, I follow the obviously the CHL as much as I can. I like to keep tabs on what's going on there, seeing the next line of players. But the college one is just one I don't pay attention to enough, and I probably should be, because there's some really, really good players there. So that's awesome. All right, guys, going to wrap up the show here today. We will be back a week today. Let me know in the comments, or just hit me up on Twitter if there's any guests you'd like on for any particular teams. I do kind of like focusing on a team every show, and we can kind of get into some of the things that are going on. So we'll try and get you some different guests. You can follow me on Twitter at Lynch on Sports. Do a lot of MMA stuff, but also do some hockey takes as well. A little bit of everything you can find there. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday. We'll see you in a week. Hope you guys take care, and we'll talk to you in a week from now. Take care.